Hello and welcome to my channel In Search of Wonder. My name is Anne and today I am going to take you on a journey to all 50 states in these great United States. I'm going to rank them and I am going to show you a book recommendation for every single one of them. My mug says Fargo, north of Normal, and Moorhead, which is in Minnesota, and West Fargo, which is in North Dakota, because North Dakota is the 50th state that I went to, and I love this mug and their slogan, north of normal, which is a little bit true. I mean, I think I have been to zanier places in the United States, including one in Alaska that I can't think of the name of it at the moment, but yes, there's a little bit north of normal going on there. It's kind of fun. Anyway, North Dakota was the 50th state that I have been to in my life. And I was very excited to achieve this. I went with my sisters, and for several of us, it was our 50th state. What I love about North Dakota is they recognize that it is the final state for many people who are visiting all the 50 states because it's a very difficult to get to unless you live in one of the bordering states. Along the border, it's hours away from anywhere, on top of which it's not really much to do there. I mean, you've got to be honest, there's not a lot. So, I mean, even South Dakota has Mount Rushmore and the Badlands. Apparently North Dakota also has a Badlands, but people mostly know about the South Dakota ones. And it's just so far up there, like it's hard to get to. So we were never close enough to go into North Dakota on any of our other trips in that area of the country, and so it was the last one. But like I said, North Dakota has embraced this, and at the visitor center in Fargo, you can join their Best for Last club, and you can get your picture taken at their little sign, and they give you a fantastic t-shirt, which I love. It's a great t-shirt. And some of the people in the shops, like the cashiers and stuff, would ask us, oh, what brings you to Fargo? And we would be like, oh, it's our last state, it's our 50th state. And they're like, we get that a lot. Like, a lot of people say that. So it's just a thing. So to celebrate me having visited all 50 states, I wanted to do a special video about the 50 states. I'm going to rank them as far as my least favorite to favorite state. And I'm also going to offer a book recommendation for each one. Now, a couple of things. My rankings of these states are based entirely on my recollection of the state, which we may have only seen a portion of it. In most states, we only did indeed see a portion of it. So some states, I'm sure there are wonderful things about them that I just didn't happen to see or don't remember seeing. Secondly, this is not about where I would like to live. It's just about literally my remembrances of what we did there and how much I enjoyed what we did there is entirely what my ranking is based on. And it does not say anything about the actual value of any of the states. Each of them obviously gives value to the country as a whole. And I'm sure there are wonderful places to live in each and every state. So I don't want to offend anybody, not trying to offend anybody. These rankings aren't meant to be taken seriously. So secondly, I am going to start with the bottom half. So this first video is going to be 26 through 50, starting with number 50 and working my way up. And then, because I have a feeling it's going to be pretty long, so then I will have another video probably that I will post tomorrow that will be the top 25. So, and for each of the book recommendations, every state has one. Some of them have more because I couldn't narrow it down. Some of the book recommendations are books set in that state. Some of the book recommendations are based on things that the state reminded me of a certain book, or I had a particular memory attached to that state and the book, so that's why I chose the book. So sometimes the link has nothing to do with the state itself. It's just triggered something for me. So this is a very personal list of recommendations that don't necessarily always have anything to do with the state in question. The only other thing I want to say before I get started with my ranking is that most of these states, actually more than 30 of them, I have visited as a grown adult on my own. Well, usually with my sisters or my family, but I have visited as an adult. When I was younger, my dad started us on this, and we took multiple vacations up the New England coast. We went down to Florida. When my grandparents moved to Florida, we went out to Michigan multiple times when they lived out there. And my dad took more than one trip out west. And so he got us to a lot of them. But I have gone to many of them again as an adult. And some of them I only went to as an adult. So I have clear memories of a lot of them, but some of them, a handful of them, I only went as a child or a young teenager, and I don't have strong memories of them. So there's that. One of my goals is to revisit some of the New England states. Most recently, we went to Massachusetts, but we didn't go to any other New England states. So I want to visit more New England states because those are the ones that I remember the least, and I want to experience them. Well, that's not true. I do have very distinct memories of them, but I want to experience it again as an adult. One more thing, when I list these books, many of these I have physical copies of, but I didn't want to bring this whole stack out here. So apologies, I'm just going to flash a picture up there for each of the books as we go through the list. So let's get started. Unfortunately, the last one, number 50, I'm sorry, but somebody had to be in this spot. And for me, it was Alabama. I mean, I don't hate you, Alabama. Like, you've got a great song, right? And a fantastic movie that I love. It's one of my favorite movies, but Sweet Home Alabama, of course. But other than that, what can we say about it except that it's the Deep South? I mean, yeah. So, To Kill a Mockingbird is a book which I need to reread, by the way, because I haven't read it in a long time. And it is an important book in American history. So look at you, Alabama, giving that to the world. So it's definitely a valuable book that every American should read. To Kill a Mockingbird is my recommendation for Alabama. Coming up in number 59 is Delaware. I mean, there are beaches, so I'll give you that. There are beaches in Delaware, so that's cool. Therefore, that is why the book that I recommend is Bookshop by the Sea by Denise Hunter, which is a perfect beach read. By the way, it's literally set by the sea. At a bookshop by the sea, like it says, but it also has a compelling personal story. You know, there's drama and trauma going on, and there's a bit of a romance in there as well. So that is a fun read. It's not set in Delaware, but it is set at the sea. But yeah, Delaware's got beaches going for it. So there you go. And then let me look at my notes. Number 48 is Mississippi. I mean, Mississippi has the Mississippi River, but so do like 20 other states. So, I mean, that's not really that special. I'm sorry, Mississippi. And Mississippi is a lot like Alabama, like it's the Deep South. So, Mississippi, we love you, but you're number 48. And I have two books to recommend here. One is The Help, which I read long after it, well, not long after, but several years after it came out. And it made a big splash when it came out. I haven't actually seen the movie, although I kind of want to. But the book, I was surprised by how much I really enjoyed the book. And I was surprised at how deep, the depth in the book. I really enjoyed it. It was a great book. It wasn't the kind of story that you love and enjoy so much, but it was impactful. And I enjoyed reading it. Another one is A Time to Kill, which is one of the few John Grisham books that I have read, and I liked it, and I liked the movie with Matthew McConaughey. I've seen that movie with him and Sandra Bullock a few times, and that's just really an important story, and it is set in Mississippi. And then we have number 47, New Jersey. I mean, the best thing about New Jersey is it gives you access to New York City, and if you're a tourist, pro tip, it's a little bit cheaper to stay in New Jersey and ferry across to New York City or drive across to New York City than to stay in the city itself. So basically, New Jersey functions as a way to get to New York. For me, personally, other than that, people call it the Garden State, which I guess is true in some parts of New Jersey, but personally, it's not my favorite place. Apologies to all who live in New Jersey. And the book that I recommend does take place in New Jersey, and it's one that I read when I was a teenager, and I found it highly hilarious because it has a large family in it, and I came from a large family, and it's funny even if you don't live in a large family, and that is cheaper by the dozen. And then number 46 is New Mexico, mostly because the only thing in New Mexico is desert, and you just drive through desert. And now, this was like 20 some years ago, when we were driving through New Mexico, as I recall, there weren't a lot of gas stations, which I feel like is kind of dumb. Like, you're just driving through the desert and driving and driving and driving, and you need gas. Like, where are the gas stations? Like, that's my prominent memory. Maybe that's changed. I don't know. Anyways, I wasn't the one driving, so I think of New Mexico as being like a desert area and kind of desolate. And so my book recommendation might be surprising, but if you think of those words, desolate and desert, makes sense. Wuthering Heights, set in a desolate location. And also, it is the only book by the author. So she only wrote one book, which kind of lends itself again to the whole desolate feeling there. Number 45 is Nevada. So the main thing I remember about Nevada is Las Vegas, although we were there mostly during the daytime and we didn't really do the whole, like I was with my family and like, we didn't do the whole like Las Vegas thing. So really, I know we were there during the day. I can't remember. I feel like we might have been there overnight at some point. But anyways, but I specifically remember being there during the daytime and being really, 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 really hot. Like so hot. And so we wanted to get out of the heat. And so we went to Borders. So that's how long ago this was. It was a Borders bookstore. It's like 2 or 3 levels. And it was a huge bookstore. And we just went and we chilled there for, I think, several hours, actually. Just browsing the books and enjoying the air conditioning. So my primary memory, ironically, of Nevada is a bookstore. So my book recommendation is The Bookseller by Cynthia Swanson, which is an interesting book that I don't hear a lot of people talking about, but it was very, very intriguing for me. I loved the twist in it. I really enjoyed it. And I can't say too much about it without revealing things and spoiling things. But there was an element of suspense in it. And it was very good. More like psychological kind of suspense, not like actual danger of any sort of thing. And the main character runs a bookshop with her friend. So that's why it's called The Bookseller. The other book recommendation that I want to mention about Nevada is because I have 1 or 2 very dear friends who come from Nevada and from Las Vegas specifically. And so I think of friends when I think of Nevada. So a great book about friends is Dear Mrs. Bird, which at the heart of that story is really a friendship and things that go wrong in the friendship and how the friendship is restored. And it's just a beautiful story in that way. Most people maybe don't think of the friendship aspect of the story when they think of it, but it is a beautiful story about friends at the end. All right, so number 44 is Utah. Mostly what I remember about Utah is mountains, lots and lots of mountains and rock formations. That is largely what I remember seeing when we drove through Utah. And some of those mountains, honestly, were a little bit scary for me as a passenger. And the book that I think of is The Mountains Between Us by, oh my goodness, what is his name? Ooh, I don't know, but I'll put the cover up there and I'll have all of the titles listed in the description box as well. But The Mountain Between Us, which was made into a movie, and again, I haven't seen the movie, but I read the book. The book was good, but a lot of the story is a survival story. So if you like survival stories, you would probably love it. It's well written, and it has an interesting twist again into the story. It emotionally, you know, it really pulls a punch, but it's mostly a survival story, and I don't love that. And this author, whose name I cannot remember, Charles Martin, he has a tendency to write a lot of medical detail in his books, and I can't handle that. I start feeling woozy after a little bit of that. So not my favorite author, and the book itself is not my favorite book, but when I think mountains, I think of that book, The Mountain Between Us. Then number 43 is Nebraska. And honestly, there's just not a lot in Nebraska. We have driven through Nebraska, and we went to Omaha a couple years ago and spent a day in Omaha. What I particularly remember about Omaha is a really cool train station they have, which it looked to me like a bit of like Art Deco style, but I feel like 20s maybe would be too late to have a train station. But anyways, maybe that's accurate as far as the architectural style. That's what I picture in my mind's eye. But it was a really beautiful old train station, and you can go there. And when we went there a couple years ago, they had like an ice cream parlor that they had right in the train station there that you could go and get ice cream, and it was really fun. It was a fun experience. So I enjoyed seeing that. So the book that I think of when I think of trains is Anna Karenina, because trains and train stations appear at pivotal moments throughout the plot in that story, and is not to make fun, but a driving influence in the story of Anna Karenina. So when I think trains and books related to trains, I think Anna Karenina. So that is my recommendation for Nebraska. And then number 42 would be Georgia. And I do remember, I have fond memories of going to Tidy Island and Savannah, Georgia several years back. Okay, like more than a decade ago, when my oldest son was young. And I can't remember if the younger one had been born yet or not. But we went on a family vacation, not just our family, but also my siblings and some other friends and things. And we went and spent a few days on Tidy Island, and it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. The first time in my life I actually enjoyed being on a beach, because it was a beautiful beach. And I normally don't like beaches, actually, but that was the first beach that I remember actually enjoying. So we went to Tidy Island, and Savannah also is a beautiful city. And the book I want to mention is The Dress Shop on King Street by Ashley Clark, which it starts out in Savannah. It doesn't stay in Savannah. It moves to other areas in other states, but it starts out in Savannah, and there's a lot about Savannah in there. And then I think it moves to like Charleston, South Carolina, and I think there's another city involved in there. But anyway, part of the story is set specifically in Savannah, Georgia, which is what I have fond memories of, and I enjoyed reading. I remember reading that book set there, and I found that very interesting. The one that I went to most recently comes up next at number 41, and that is North Dakota. And there's just not a lot to do in North Dakota. Fargo was kind of a cool small town kind of city, which we enjoyed walking around, but you can cover that whole thing in a day. It doesn't take long. And one thing that I did love about going there to North Dakota was the strong Scandinavian influence. So North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Upper Peninsula, Michigan all have a strong Scandinavian influence because of the Scandinavian immigrants settling in those places and farming or mining in those areas and creating Scandinavian communities. So there's still a heavy Scandinavian influence on the culture there, and I love that. So my recommendation, though, is the most recent book I read, which was as I made this list, and that was Born of Gilded Mountains, which was a wonderful book by Amanda Dykes that I highly recommend. Since then, the latest book that I actually read as of the moment I'm filming this is Jane Austen at Home by Lucy Worsley, but I didn't love it, so I'd rather you read Born of Gilded Mountains instead. Then number 40 is Montana. Now, Montana is a really cool state. I don't have a lot of memory of it, and I didn't do a lot there. So again, these rankings aren't really reflecting the true value of any of these states, just my own experience with them, which in this case is not that much, so it doesn't get very high on the list. One thing I will say that I do remember about Montana is that we went to Yellowstone Park and we saw Old Faithful, the geyser, and Old Faithful is amazing because it can be predicted. You know, it's called Old Faithful for a reason. So it erupts pretty regularly, and it's really cool to see. We were able to see it when we were there. So I wanted to mention a book that is a reread for me that never disappoints. For me, that is Anne of Green Gables. I love Anne of Green Gables so much, and every time I read it, it just delights me, and the character delights me. The things that happen in the story are just fun to read about and heartwarming as well. The book, it will make you laugh and it will make you cry. It has made me laugh and cry every time I read it, so it never disappoints. It's a faithful reread for me. So Anne of Green Gables. Number 39, Louisiana. And when I think of Louisiana, I think specifically of the French Quarter and eating beignets at Café du Monde. That's largely my memory, which is a pretty good memory, so there is that. But there is a heavy French influence, obviously the French Quarter, in Louisiana because it was founded by the French. And one book that I read about that talked a lot about that was The Mark of the King by Jocelyn Green. And it goes like in the very early history of Louisiana and some of the characters and the actual people who settled there and what life was like settling Louisiana back in that time. So that is a book I can definitely recommend. Also, I thought of a French book that I have mentioned before, Camille by Alexandre Dumas, Son. And it is a very tragic book, but it is a fun, well, it's not a fun read, but it's a tragic read, but it's good. And the opera La Traviata is based, I believe, on that story. And then number 38 is Washington. And when I think of Washington, I think of rain and green and Mount St. Helena. That's what I think of. And the book recommendation I have is The Doctor's Lady by Jody Headland, which is about Narcissa Whitman, and I forget her husband's name. And they were some of the first settlers in the Oregon Territory, but where they were is now Washington. And it's kind of a complex story that's not all happy on all sides. And I feel like Jodi Headland does a good job of writing a compelling novel, because it's a fictional, like it's a novel based on true events, but it's not like a biography per se. It's a biographical novel. She does a good job of writing a compelling story without, and with not ignoring the less attractive aspects of the story and what happened there, but also not really, it's not a deep and heavy book. So it's not going to dig too deep into all of the things that went down there, and you know, the relationship of Narcissa and her husband, whose name I can't remember. So it's a novel. So it's probably a fairly light treatment of it, but I found it interesting and worth reading. And then number 37 is South Dakota, which we went to recently, which we had been to before, but we chose to go to North Dakota by way of South Dakota because we wanted to go to DSMET. And so I think of DSMET, South Dakota, even though there's Mount Rushmore and there's the Badlands, which I've also been to, but DSMET is just, I just really loved it, with the connection to Little Town on the Prairie and Little House on the Prairie and Laura Ingalls Wilder and all of those things. So of course my recommendation for this is The Long Winter, which is all about the really horrible winter that the Ingalls experienced when they lived in DSMET in the early days of the town, and when almost all of the people in that town nearly died from starvation because they just were cut off from all food sources, but they miraculously survived and lived to tell about that horrible winter. Then number 36 is Iowa. And when I think of Iowa, I think of the Music Man. Because I do. So every time, and we've driven through Iowa a few times. I don't know that we've ever stopped and done anything in Iowa, but we have driven through Iowa more than once. And when we drive through Iowa, I mean, I always put on the Music Man soundtrack to any of them. There are multiple ones. There's movie soundtracks, there are Broadway soundtracks, etc. I listen to all of them driving through Iowa. That's really what you do, right? When you go through Iowa, you listen to the Music Man. Doesn't everybody do that? Because of that, my recommendation would be books related to the appreciation of music. You know, Music Man, music. And I have a couple. One is Art in the Bible by Francis Schaeffer, which is not specifically talking about music, but it's talking about fine arts in general, including music and including visual arts and that, and to a certain extent, literature or whatever. But it's really just art in general. And a lot of it, the truth is applied to music. And then for more general just appreciation of music, How to Listen to Great Music by Robert Greenberg is one of the best ones that I have read for the average person. He also has playlists on Spotify that you can listen that coordinate with the music that he talks about in his book. And then number 35 is Minnesota. And my primary memory of Minnesota is driving through it to get from North Dakota down to Chicago, most recently, but also the mall in Minneapolis are my primary memories of it. But also, I really loved reading Kirsten, which is an American Girl story. Kirsten was my favorite American Girl for a long time because her family were immigrants from Sweden, I believe, and so I felt that connection because my family were immigrants from Finland, and I just loved it. And it was set in Minnesota, which was a very similar climate and terrain to the upper peninsula of Michigan, where my great grandparents settled. So there was that connection for me. So Kirsten, the American Girl, is my recommendation. Number 34 is Indiana, which I consider a through state. We drive through Indiana to get to other places. That is the only reason we have ever been in Indiana. We have stopped in Indianapolis, you know, for food, and there's a really cool coffee shop there called Hitherto. It's like a gaming parlor, but it's also a coffee shop, and it's really good coffee. We've stopped there more than once. But other than that, it's like a through state. So I don't have much to say about Indiana besides that. And the book that I am recommending for the state of Indiana is because when I think of, you know, we go through Indiana to get to other places. So I was thinking, what is a good book that helps you read other books, help you get more out of other books? And one that I thought of was How to Read Literature Like a Professor. I forget the name of the author, but it tells about, you know, the various metaphors and things that authors are saying that are common techniques used in books, in novels particularly, to help you understand more about, especially in literature, like what the author is trying to say about the book. Then number 33 is Illinois, which of course is the home of Chicago, and also is the home of Casey, Illinois, which my family discovered accidentally on a road trip a few years ago. And my husband was driving, and he never does this, by the way, he never does this, but it was the best. Like, I point this out to him as an example of the good things that can happen when you just do something occasionally impulsively when you're traveling. So we were driving along the road, and he was kind of looking for a place to stop, and like gas station, whatever. And so he saw billboards for Casey, Illinois, and he was very curious about it. So we stopped, and it was so fun. First of all, it's a super cute little downtown, super cute, so cute. Secondly, there was a family in Casey, Illinois, who just wanted to put their little town on a map. And so they started constructing things that are like larger than life, so they can be in the Guinness Book of World Records, like the world's largest rocking chair. Might have been one of the first ones. The world's largest pencil, world's largest mailbox, like that kind of thing. So it just kind of became a thing. And so now the whole little town is full of the world's largest this, that, or the other thing. And it's just fun. It's just silly fun, but it's also such a cute little downtown, and I'm a sucker for a good cute little downtown. So we love Casey, Illinois. We have the best memories of that town. And so the book I want to recommend is a larger than life book in more than one way, and that is Don Quixote. So Don Quixote is a very long book. I believe it's more than 1,000 pages in many editions. And also the character is very much a larger than life character who totally fits with the concept of being the world's largest whatever. So, oh, there is a nasty looking little waspy thing over there. So I'm keeping my eye on that situation. Ooh, okay. All right. Number 32, Ohio. So I have family in Ohio, so I've been to Ohio many times, and I have done touristy things in Ohio. We did enjoy the city of Columbus when we went there a couple years ago. My favorite little place in Ohio is Lebanon, Ohio, which is, again, super cute little town. Love it. And my recommendation is by an author from Ohio, Anthony Doerr, and his book, All the Light We Cannot See. Highly recommend that book. All right, and then 31, Oklahoma. So Oklahoma is a big state. Oklahoma has some very interesting terrain. It was kind of fun, at least the parts that I recall having driven through, I enjoyed. Tulsa, Oklahoma is not that great of a city. I'm going to be honest, not my favorite of cities that we have been to, but they do have the beginning of Route 66 there, and they have like a little memorial area that's really cool that we enjoyed visiting when we were there. And my book recommendation is, I have two, because I couldn't narrow it down. There are two books that feature Oklahoma largely that I just really loved. And one is A Cup of Dust by Susie Finkleiner, which is the first book in a trilogy that she wrote about the Dust Bowl. And you just feel like you're there in that story. And it's so well written. It's well researched. It's told from the first book is told from the perspective of a girl who's like, she's just like coming of age. And there's family dynamics there going on. There's family history. Then there's the whole issue with the Dust Bowl happening and all of that stuff. And so good. Really love that series. And then another one is Everything Sad is Untrue by Daniel Nairi, which is about a refugee from the Middle East who came to Oklahoma. He and his mom and him and his sister settled in Oklahoma. It's kind of a memoir, but it's written as fiction. So I think it's based on his actual life experiences, but it's not 100% true. I don't think it's told in a novel format, but there's a lot of truth in it. But they moved to Oklahoma. So really impactful book that I really loved and enjoyed. Number 30 is Kansas. And Kansas City, of course, is often what you think of when you think of Kansas. And also, the prairies and everything. There's definitely a lot of prairie there. There's not much to do in Kansas, to be honest, but they do have a really amazing World War I memorial area there, which is one of the highlights of the city. And that might actually be in the Missouri part, but whatever. So that is what I think of when I think of Kansas. Prairies and the World War I memorial that we saw in Kansas City. So for the prairies, I could say Little House on the Prairie, but I will recommend instead Caroline by Sarah Miller, which tells the story of Little House on the Prairie from Ma's perspective. And I felt like it was very, very well done. I really enjoyed Caroline. Highly recommend. And then Yours is the Night by Amanda Dykes is a book that is about World War I. And it is kind of in honor of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And it's just beautifully told. And it's set in France. And it's one of the best books. There aren't as many books about World War I as there are about World War II, but it's definitely one of the best that I've read about World War I. And then getting the rest close to the end of this video for today, thankfully. Number 29 is Arkansas. And my primary memory of Arkansas, well, we went on mission trips and helped a church there do a BDS a couple of times. So I have memories of that. But also on vacation with my family, we went to Hot Springs, Arkansas, which is a beautiful town that I highly recommend. We enjoyed our time there so much. But while we were there was a fantastic storm. And we were just caught out in the middle of it. Me and my sister and a gaggle of nieces and nephews and my own children. We were literally walking on, it was a little bit of a hike, kind of a hike to get to the springs there. But, or, you know, kind of like on the mountainside. It's not really a mountain, more of a hill, I guess. I don't know. But we were there, we were walking through the woods and this tremendous storm hit. And we may have had like one umbrella between us. We were soaked to the bone, And the kids just had a marvelous time. They loved it, with the exception of my oldest nephew, who did not enjoy being wet. The rest of them, they loved it. They were just the right age that they thought it was so much fun to just be out in the torrential rain. And so they got soaking wet. And we saw all of the springs and everything. Then it started to thunder and stuff. So we took shelter in a store, and the store had this nice balcony, like a porch with, you know, an awning and everything. So we stood there and waited out the rest of the storm. Unfortunately, there was some flooding in some of the shops there the day that we were there. So that was a not cool aspect of it. And also, my younger son got very scared when it turned into a thunderstorm, and it was a big deal. It was a storm. It was a big storm. I'm not gonna lie. So I don't want to downplay it, but he was a little scared standing. We were perfectly safe where we were, just watching it, but he was honestly a little scared. But thankfully, we were stuck in a candy store, and so we got him some cotton candy, and that soothed him a little bit. Yeah, that's what I remember mostly about Arkansas. And so I think of books that have that stormy quality to them, or where storms play an integral part of the story. And I immediately think of Jane Eyre, where storms and the weather plays such a big part in that story, and as a metaphor. And also Becoming Free Indeed by Ginger Willow Duggar, that I read recently. Her family is from Arkansas and might be one of Arkansas's most famous residents. I don't know, but her book I found very enjoyable. I read earlier this summer, so I also recommend that one. And then we have number 28, which is South Carolina, which I've been to also this summer. My favorite thing about South Carolina is in Greenville, actually, the Reedy River Park, which is a beautiful park set in the downtown Greenville area. Just a gorgeous, gorgeous place. I love downtown city parks. But the book that I want to mention is Celia Garth by Gwen Bristow, which is a vintage historical fiction novel set during the Civil War. And it talks about the battle at Fort Sumter, I believe it is. And I remember the character in the story, she's watching that from her rooftop home in Charleston, I believe, and she's watching that battle take place. And it also goes into detail with the guerrilla fighting that took place. Oh no, did I say Civil War? Revolutionary War. It talks about the guerrilla fighting that took place in the Revolutionary War, which was the first time that such tactics were really used and became a huge element of American warfare at that point. That was a really good book that kind of stuck with me. And then number 27 is Kentucky. The main thing I remember about Kentucky is Paducah, Kentucky, which again, we discovered on a road trip. And we were looking for a place to have lunch, and we stopped there for lunch. And they have this really cool, several cities along the Mississippi River have this. This might have been the Missouri River there, but they have like river walls that they built up against the river. And they decorate those walls with murals that tell the history of the state or the history of the river or something, or honoring important people that have come from their state. And there was a really cool one in Paducah, and we got to meet actually the artist who had designed them, because he was there repairing some of the segments of the wall. And we just really enjoyed just walking along and looking at those beautiful paintings and taking a walk along that river wall. So along the lines of Kentucky, I can recommend The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek, which wasn't my favorite book. I had some issues with it, but it is an interesting look into Kentucky the life in the Appalachian, I think it's Appalachian Mountains in Kentucky, and particularly the life of the blue people that are famous for having lived there. Very interesting. Not my favorite book, but definitely very interesting. The other one I want to mention is because the other memory that I have associated with Kentucky is the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter that are in Kentucky, and which we've been to several times and really enjoyed. And one book that I got there one of the times we went there that I found so fascinating was The Genius of Ancient Man by Don Landis, which takes a look at things that ancient man did that still exist today, or evidences that they left behind, and ponders what it was like even before any time that we have evidence of, like before the flood or whatever. And his primary point is that man has devolved rather than evolved, which I think is, he makes a good case for that in the sense of he's looking at it specifically from the perspective of intelligence. And it's an interesting book. It's not like a dry academic book. It's set up more like a children's informational book, if that makes sense, like one of those Dorling Kindersley books with a lot of pictures of the artifacts and then explanations of them and some brief discussions of various things. It's not like a dry academic heavy sort of book. It's easy to read, and I just found it very interesting. And then the last one I want to mention on this video today is number 26, and that is Wisconsin. And Wisconsin is where I was born. We did not live very long in Wisconsin. I think I was 3 months when we moved, but Wisconsin, I was born there. And the book that I want to recommend is Little House in the Big Woods, because that is where the Ingalls family story starts, and in Wisconsin, and Little House in the Big Woods is set there, and it goes from there. And I think it's just a beautiful picture of pioneer life in the 19th century when they were living there, and I love their family dynamics and the story. So that is number 26. Come back tomorrow and find out what the top 25 states are, in my opinion at least.